Hey Navigators, today I'm going to ride down to Safety Harbor, Clearwater Beach, and St. Pete to see the effects of the hurricanes on these areas. The devastation has been pretty widespread, but I haven't seen it for myself. So let's take a ride and check it out.
Okay, so the first place I ever went to was Safety Harbor, and they were hit with storm surge by Hurricane Helene. Now, to the right is the bay, and to the left behind the houses over here is a lake. And just to show you how high 8 to 12 feet of storm surge is, so I'm going to turn around here in a second, but you'll see the debris that is on the ground. That is how far the water came up. And you're looking straight ahead, there's some mangroves in the bay. So that is how far 8 to 12 feet, 8 to 10 feet of storm surge will travel. Of course, it's higher. So if the homes were low and near the water, they would be flooded up to the ceiling. Now this is back in the spring, this is the marina. Beautiful marina in downtown Safety Harbor, has this great pier at the end. On the right-hand side, it's got this cute little marina for the docks and the boats, and here you can see the impact of the first hurricane, Hurricane Helene. The storm surge brought in so much debris, it killed a lot of the plants. The elevation of water actually destroyed some of the docks back there. And as you approach in the spring, before the hurricanes, this beautiful pier at the end of this area, walkway out, you can see manatees and everything like that. It's really beautiful. Unfortunately, with the arrival of Hurricane Helene and the storm surge, there was some damage. First off, you'll notice that the parking lot's full of sand and water because it was just lifted into the marina area. The parking lot and the once beautiful pier has now been destroyed and will have to be rebuilt. Now, when Hurricane Milton came in Safety Harbor, there wasn't storm surge here. There was just wind and rain, and we had so much rain. We had literally the weather people said anywhere between a 200-year to a 500-year event. So you see so much water on the ground, it's just draining. This is a day or two after the hurricane, and it's just draining towards the bay. It was everywhere, but the real issue was the ground was so saturated. I know that in my yard during the hurricane, I stepped out of my house and I stepped onto the grass, and my foot sank 6 inches. This was ground that was completely solid before the hurricane. So we had some trees that fell over and leaned against our house, actually pinning a power line between the trees and our back porch roof. So what you'll see here is this is Safety Harbor is known for its oak trees. So up right in front of us here is an example of it was so moist, so saturated. The whole summer it rained. It was an epically wet summer. It rained literally every day. I could not ride my Navi. I don't like to ride it in the rain. But the ground was so saturated when the strong winds, the 100-mile-an-hour winds came through Safety Harbor. Any of these larger trees, the ground around the roots was soft, and it ended up toppling over a lot of trees. And here you can see again, this is a day or two later, and the water from the higher elevations is still draining down towards the bay. But fortunately, Safety Harbor was not that affected compared to other areas in the Tampa Bay area. So now we're in Clearwater, and I followed up. This is actually post-Hurricane Milton, the second hurricane. And one of the challenges that the area has had is, where do you put all the debris? Hurricane Helene, with the storm surge, which really affected places like St. Petersburg and Clearwater Beach, they had so much debris that they had to put somewhere. So any open, unused field or plot of land had been turned into a dumping site. So you can see here on the left-hand side, that's just piles of garbage. And what's really sad about that garbage is people's lives. That's their entire house. Those are all of their belongings that were destroyed, their drywall and everything. And then you'll see other piles of just trees and brush and the natural debris that isn't associated with homes. And you'll just see them all over the counties here. Now this is the footage from Clearwater Beach. We're out on Clearwater Beach. Downtown Clearwater was not really affected by the flood or the wind as far as I could tell. Clearwater Beach was. The storm surge from Hurricane Helene really had an impact. And so when you're right on the water, 8 to 12 feet of storm surge from the first storm is literally up to your roof or maybe even over your roof. And all that water and that debris has things in it that aren't clean, so you literally have to gut your entire house. So this is from the footage of when it was before the hurricanes, and here you can see, for example, the consequence on the right-hand side of one of the cute little hotels down on Clearwater Beach. Totally gutted, just totally gutted. Here's again before the hurricane, and then after the hurricane. You can see the garbage everywhere. And you'll see a lot of the trees, because of the salt water, are dead. Now here you'll see there's a parking garage, a little shaded parking garage structure where all those panels blew off in the second hurricane. This is after the second hurricane. And these houses coming up on the right-hand side are facing the water. They're facing the Gulf. And what happened with the first hurricane was that all the sand was washed through their homes and into the street. So you can see it piled up with their destroyed belongings on the side. Again, I'm cutting back between the original time I visited before the hurricanes. And then the effect afterwards. Again, sand and debris everywhere. Now, Clearwater Beach, they will spend all the time and energy they need to get it up to speed as quickly as possible. And there's some footage a little later that will show that. But that's why all the new homes, as I mentioned in the video before, the original video, the first floors on all the new homes are garages and stuff where you can put things that are not going to be affected if there are floodwaters like there were during Hurricane Helene, the first one. Now here, when I originally drove here, you're driving up to the beach and you can see the beautiful white sands, and this is just a parking lot right next to the beach. It's beautiful. But as they're trying to reclaim the beaches, fix them, clear out the sands, get rid of debris, they've actually blocked off this particular parking lot. And there's a huge pile of sand there as they have to restore the beaches and the sands that were in that area. Some of the sad things that you see in any of these sort of hurricane events is this is some older parts of Clearwater Beach, and these beautiful homes, again, the water just covered everything down here from 8 to 12 feet. And you'll see here, I'm going to turn around here in a second because it's a better understanding of the consequence here. But here you can see on the right-hand side as people have just piled their stuff by the road. And look at all that. Look at all that. That's just, again, people's lives. Everything they own. I know that one of my uncles had everything destroyed. Everything. After the waters had subsided, they walked into his apartment. It was on the first floor. Not in this area. It's another area of St. Petersburg. And they collected whatever they could that was not wet, which wasn't a lot. And then everything else they knew was going to be destroyed and thrown out. And you can just see here, I mean, look at all the first floors here. Gone. And what's fascinating is so many people's homes were destroyed that a lot of the hotels are booked with people who live here, not tourists. Now this is the beach on Clearwater Beach. This is what it normally looks like, and it will look like relatively soon. But it's gorgeous. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. When I came down here, this area I couldn't get to this way. The street was blocked off because they're doing so much repair work on the beaches itself. So I have to get back to here, going another route. Now I'm heading back. I had to go around basically because the road was blocked off. But I found this one road that went towards the road that actually is next to the beach, the road I was just on the first time I went down there. So this is the only road I could go. And that's one of the things I love about Navis is you can get them anywhere. If it's a sidewalk, you can get back there. So you'll see that they're fixing the sand. There's a lot of sand again that was washed on that they pushed back to clear the roads. But what's interesting here is up on the right-hand side, they have this machine which is actually basically cleaning and drying out the sand. So you'll see that it'll feed through the bottom of this yellow mechanism. It'll put it up this lift. I don't know what it's called, and then it'll spray it out on top, and then it'll fall down, and that aeration will actually dry out the sand and help clean it. And it gets the sun will help get rid of anything that's bad in there. It'll bleach it out and kill anything, and then it also makes the sand soft. And that's one of the beautiful things about Clearwater Beach is the white sand that's just so soft and beautiful. So that's what they're doing here on the left-hand side. I'm not an expert on it, but I could see it and watch it occur, and it was pretty cool. It was neat how they're trying to get this place back as soon as possible. And just look at how much work they're having to do. Well, you have all these people fixing on the right-hand side, all the hotels and all the things that are washed out over here. And then on the left-hand side, you have piles of sand that are, like I said, were swept off the streets themselves. There's a lot of erosion that happens in things like this. One of the stories that I have from one of the earlier videos of either Dunedin or Tarpon Springs is that there are two islands out there, Caladesi Island and Honeymoon Island. And that was one island called Hog Island until a hurricane hit about 100 years ago. And these two hurricanes that hit, have done the most damage since that hurricane 100 years ago. We rarely get direct hits or very devastating impacts of hurricanes, but this was literally one in a century and exacerbated by 1 in 200 or 1 in 500 levels of rainfall. They said we were something like 10 to 12 or maybe even as high as 25 feet of rain higher than normal. And most of that was not in the hurricanes. Most of that was just the summer. One of the historic locations in downtown St. Petersburg is Albert Whitted Airport. I love this shot, by the way. Just happened to capture this plane it was landing. But one of the things that you can't really see in the footage, and I went around the whole airport, is that they actually had damage to some of the hangars. Now here was an unfortunate accident during the hurricane, during Milton, the second one with the wind. It actually toppled a crane that was next door and actually crashed into a building next to it, into the Tampa Bay Times building. Those cranes are meant to spin freely during high winds so that they don't collapse, but this one apparently didn't do it. And here was one of the most shocking things to see, both live and riding my Navi, was what had happened to Tropicana Field where the Tampa Bay Rays play. Now, they were approved to get a new stadium in a few years, but the winds were so strong during Hurricane Milton, especially because the roof is higher. Apparently, if you're just like 20, 30 feet higher, you'll get substantially stronger winds. And those winds ripped off the roof, and there's no drainage inside. It was not designed to require any drainage inside. So they're really stuck trying to figure out what to do since they're building a new stadium in a few years. Where are the Tampa Bay Rays going to play? What should they do? Invest a lot of money into this dome, which will be torn down shortly, or find somewhere else to play? They're figuring it out. One of the most surprising things to see was all of these FEMA trailers, which house people who had lost their homes. Just so many of them. It was really a sight to see. Now, I want to wrap up visiting one more place, a place kind of near and dear to my heart. This is in St. Pete. Now, I never shot down here during one of the original videos that I do of St. Pete, the area that I shot in downtown St. Pete, old Northeast neighborhood and Coffee Pot Bayou. They did a good job. I rode down there. They have done a great job cleaning it up. But this is on the other side of, it's like near Snell Isle. It's called Shore Acres. And this area is 4 feet above sea level. So 8 to 12 feet of water. You can guess how high it is. And what's really devastating just looking at this is just every single home is toast, unless it was built recently and it's 2 stories. These are epically awesome historic homes built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And look at this. Every house has everything they owned in their front yard. It's really sad to see. I grew up near here, not here, but my brothers and I used to ride our bikes down to Shore Acres because during a really heavy afternoon thunderstorm, which happens every afternoon in the summer, there were certain areas that would flood. So we'd ride our bikes down there. We'd ride through the rain or through the puddles, which was fun, but we'd also knew that some cars would get stuck there and we could help push them through. So this has always been just a flood area, but of course, we've never had this sort of event for 100 years, for a century. So to see this area I used to ride my bike through and just see this sort of destruction, it's hard. It's hard to see. Not only because it puts a stain on my memories from my childhood, but more importantly, it's like, again, these are people's lives. People are actually just selling their homes. They're not even trying to sell them at cost. They're just selling them for the land, just getting out of there. And I think that's the only way this area is going to survive, is all of these homes are going to, the older homes, sadly, because I don't know how they're going to get insurance with this sort of event. So I think they're just going to have to be bought, torn down, and two-story homes where it's garages on the bottom floor are the only way that I think this sort of neighborhood will survive. Because who's going to buy a house that can flood that easily? And who's going to insure a home that is such a flood risk? 4 feet above sea level. That was one of the challenges with Snell Isle in the Coffee Pot Bayou and the Snell Isle video, is that they actually had to build it up. The original island would go underwater at high tide. So they spent a lot of money building up this area because it was just marsh and mangroves. They built it up the best they could back in the day, and that was 4 feet above sea level. So this is the destruction that you see, and it's like anything else on television. It's not so much the destruction that is really impactful as it is the scope is really, really hard to comprehend when you can just ride on a Navi for a half hour, 2 hours, more. It's just nonstop. So pray for the people here that their lives can get back on track as quickly as possible, that they can get their jobs back, their homes back, or get back to some sort of semblance of a normal life as quickly as possible. It's a great area to live. Tampa Bay is one of the most beautiful places ever, but this is the risk of living here. Anyway, I want to thank you all so much for joining me. Don't forget to feed the algorithms, and I'll see you guys next time.